So you've been breeding raccoons and rats together and making babies and selling them, and you've made a lot of money so far, and why wouldn't you? So you decided to buy a camera, and you did buy it, you were all happy, you get home, and then you watch a little comparison. Oh no, my new camera's not as good as this other one. I didn't even know, because no one did a side-by-side comparison. That's why I'm here. We have 4 questions, 5, and I'm gonna ruin someone's life today.
All I want is the perfect camera. All I want is the perfect camera.
So we're on the Sony ZV-E1 with the Zeiss 55mm 1.8 in dramatic neutral color science. No log, blackness upon us. So I got a bunch of questions that were all like this versus that. What should I get, this or that? A phone versus a full frame? There's literally that question in here. So we get to you now. For wildlife, would you stick with full frame and the 600mm 6.3, or when Nikon comes out with a Pro DX body? What does DX even stand for? How does that make any sense? FX is full frame, the full X. DX is dumber. What is it even? Dumb. Would you go 400mm 24.5? Same depth of field, is it? No. It's a 6.7 equiv to my 6.3. Some people would see it. I'd see the difference. Same depth of field, but brighter aperture. Assuming the camera met your needs, would it? Would any of them? No. Not one camera is designed for me. I would have to see, you would think if Nikon or anyone came out with an APS-C sensor with 12 megapixels, the specs on it would be astronomical. Like, why did the Sony FX30 come out as an FX3 competitor, but it had 5 times the megapixels? What the hell was that decision making? So it's like, no, nobody's doing it. It would be so fast. We're doing 4K 240, HD 480. Then okay, I would consider it. But if you're just like matching my Z6 III and the only difference is it's a crop and slightly lighter with that lens, no. The 600mm 6.3, that's light as cake. You attach it to a Z6 with the 40mm Tony 2 on top. I've done that sometimes. Don't cover the microphone. It's a very easy walk around setup. The 400's probably even lighter and funner, but until they come out and beat the specs, I am so sick of nobody beating the Sony a7S III still. That's literally the world we're living in, waiting for that thing to be beat. You suck. Hi Casey, I have a question. In spec sheet, GH7 should be your next almost perfect camera. Yeah, almost, not even close. But why you rather have an X-T4 instead of penny Leica? Come on. Is that because of the sensor size or the brand itself or any flaw make that camera not so popular? Thanks. There's many reasons. It's funny because I ended up selling the Fuji X-H2S for the GH6 that had only contrast detect, and I was like, this is way better. Like, I was so sick of the 240p being so noisy and unusable, and then Panasonic had 300 frames per second. And I was like, manual focus only, but I could handle it. But now that I've branched out into street videography, side note, new music video, it's down there. How come you haven't watched it? Only 100 people have it. All that work, months of effort making the song and the music. Nobody watched it. Oh, that hurts. I should have posted it here. But on paper, the GH7 is kind of better than the X-H2S in a lot of ways. Like, the Fuji has all these crops in slow-mo where the Panasonic doesn't. So if you do the math, in 240 frames per second, you're smaller sensor than the Panasonic. It's actually a 2.1 times crop. But here's why I'm buying the Panasonic GH never. The slower the frame rates, the more crippled Panasonic gets. In 120, you have no face detection autofocus. You're still doing phase, but it's like in a box and it's not as fast as 24p. If you go higher than that, good luck. It's single autofocus in 240 and then manual only in 300. And it's like, no thank you. So street videography? Nope. Plus the GH7 body is literally twice the weight of my Sony ZV-E1. Almost. It's like in the ballpark of double the weight for 4 times less of a sensor. The only reason I'm aiming for Fuji is because of the dynamic range and the color science. Just for something new. Just as a joke. just to compare it. I have the 35mm lens. That's a legendary lens. Panasonic is like an underdog, but they lead the industry in a lot of ways. And it's a weird mix of like, we're not popular at all, but we're better than everyone at some things. And still no one wants it. So there's something, I don't know if it's the name Panasonic and we've seen it on our microwaves and we're done with you. There's something wrong with you. Would you get a modern phone and forego any photography video gear for $1,000 or spend $4,000 for a top Sony camera? Why does it have to be Sony with the green faces? Leave me alone. And the 24mm prime, like that's your goal in life, to be flat robot skills. Well, look at me. I don't have depth in my scene. Is that okay? Clinical bitch. This would be for YouTube, so most people would be watching on their phone. I don't care what your hunchneck ass is looking at your phone. I hold radioactivity in my hands. But when I'm not, I put it safely away near my testicles. Uh-oh, what's that pain? And how come I can't have a son? Oh, where's my son? I hope your son kills you. I got an offer from a company that said, do you want to review this SSD? It can record Apple ProRes, and we'll give you $2,000 to buy the phone. I was like, that's interesting. I'm the kind of guy that wants to say no to that. But I said yes, but he ghosted my ass, so I'm still waiting. So I sold out and I didn't get. So I only get punished by the man up there. He's in here too. Right in the middle. The iPhone has a pretty natural look for a phone, but that's what I hate about phones, is they don't look natural usually. And the iPhone, you have no specs to win my heart. Like, you're doing HD 240 for the last 7 years, if not 25 years. There's a timeline right in there, and you have not increased that spec once. You like added 4K at one point, and 24p, then 60, 120, and HD has stayed at a flat line. It's like you invested in platinum or something. It's bullshit metal. It's not even in the Bible. No one cares about it. You bought some? Send it to my Bitcoin address. So for me, you're giving me $4,000. I'm buying a Canon C70, and I'm laughing at your dumb phone. The phones are just gross. I still have my one phone that I bought, the Huawei P40 Pro. Don't even make me show you the footage from it. It's still relevant. Can you see why I would never choose you? You're nothing. You're a gimmick. You're AI information blasted to a fake doll factory where Chinese babies are made out of wood. This is the skin tone level you're trying to give me as a present. Like, go home. I'm sure one day a phone will be announced that will be like, wow, and pique my interest, but so far everything new sucks, from Xiaomi, iPhone, Samsung, frickin' Huawei even getting worse than what they already had. So like, phones aren't really on my radar, even though they would be the most fun. They could have so much slow-mo potential. You got 3 lenses in there. It's pretty lightweight. But right now, no. I moved closer and the tonne has increased 11%, adding 19% of value to my show. What do you recommend over XS20 at a similar or slightly more price point? I'm not sure you could even beat it. Why even bother? Except you could beat it so easily. A Canon R8, roughly the same price, only full frame. I would rather have that, except that those files, you need to also buy a Mac 19. Those exist. A used XS20 is better than an XM5 new. About the same price, and then you don't have all the weird quirks with the tripod blocking your battery door and all this crap. Tiny thing with no viewfinder. So like, XS20 is quite nice. If you're moving into Canon, even like an RP would look better technically. Even though it's line skip 1080p, it's real bad. It's not bad. Or an old EOS R, that would kill it, except dynamic range. It's not good, Canon. If you want to actually be in focus, a Sony ZV-E10 Mark II, probably cheaper. Who cares about that thing, though? You're getting a green face like mine today. Good luck with that, science. What the hell was that flash? Did you see it? I saw it. But it's a solid camera. I'm looking for one. It's just after watching that dynamic range masterclass, and he mentioned the XH2S has a 14-bit thing that increases the dynamic range. I don't know if the XS20 has that or not. It might, but it likely doesn't, and therefore XH2S has more dynamic range and you won't clip your Christmas bulbs. So XS20 is not bad. All right, last question. I just switched to S-Log 3. Did our lives get worse? I still kept a low ISO below normal, but dynamic range could have still increased. What would you recommend? Zeiss Batis 40mm, it's a Tony 2, versus the 35 Zeiss 2.8. It's really not even close, but they're very different. The 40mm Batis is very expensive, giant, but it has super macro abilities. Whereas the Zeiss 35 is tiny, nothing, body cap style, but still has the Zeiss pop. 2.8, you lost a stop, but you gain it in the weight. Much cheaper. I bought mine for like $250, something like that. If I was going for that, wow, that's a tough one. That is a tough one, because the Nikon 40mm Tony 2, it's so much cheaper and lighter and better than that probably. It's like very similar. Get a Nikon, buddy. What are you doing? I'm honestly never blown away by this focal length combination 40mm Tony 2, but it's beautiful in its own way. It's like one of my favorite lenses, but like I would replace it in a heartbeat with the 50mm 1.4 maybe one day. But like, it's a solid choice, but the Zeiss version is, it's not like this budget thing. It's gonna look nice, but very expensive and heavy. So, I don't know, neither of those. The answer is the 35mm Zeiss 1.4. You're welcome. That thing is also big and heavy, but you could find it cheap. And it's got the ton. Done. Not so much done. Done. In fact, let's just switch to the Nikon 40mm so you can see what it would be compared to the 55 1.8. That was his question, kind of. So now we're on the Nikon Z6 III, 40mm Tony 2, and you can see it's not the most, like, wow, focal length. You're not blown away by the background blur or the amount of things in the shot now. We increased, you now see like a doorway. I don't know, it's not like my favorite thing ever made, but it is vintage, it's cheap, and it's got the pop. Whereas your bullshit lenses were heavier and more expensive, and you don't have 6K RAW, do you? The real question you should be asking is, should I get into Nikon versus Sony, as we're seeing? That guy, he was in log, but he's not RAW. Oh, he has less noise in the shadows. That's a better shot. Like, that affects your life. I get so many comments. What's with all the noise in the shadows? Oh my God. Yeah, you're looking at the wrong direction. And how does neutral Sony color science compare with RAW? Maybe that was enough. It's much cheaper and lighter, that setup. I'll tell you that much. So Sony and Nikon, you're brothers. But I personally would go with the cute little Zeiss 35 2.8. Slow motion street videography is very tiny. They're not even seeing it. And you're getting the magic. Could you even believe it? So I helped you. And you will now help me by donating your life savings into Bitcoin. Convert it first, and then drop it into there. And then, what happened? Worry about that for another day. After you subscribe for more videos,